Hey guys, it's Sekaar, and today we're going to be going over another one of my Arcanist builds for the Necrom chapter. Before we get started, if you're not subscribed to the channel, please do so. We are about 50 away from hitting that big 6K subscriber mark. So guys, if you're not subbed, please do so. It would help me out a bunch. But guys, let's just get started with this build. We're going to be an Imperial on our Arcanist. On the last build, I was a Khajiit, but I felt like for my overall sustain, I felt like Imperial was better, so I switched it to that. So I think that this is overall best in slot. Your overall Arcanist abilities are very expensive, so having that 6% reduced cost built into all of your abilities because it's one of your passives is absolutely massive, and I definitely recommend doing it. I definitely noticed a difference in my sustain, and I definitely recommend going Imperial. For our attributes, we're going to use 2 points into magic, 39 points into health, and 23 points into stamina to give us a max magic pool of 16.7k, a max health pool of 34.4k, and a max stam pool of 20.2k. Our magic recovery is pretty high in this build because Arcanist has a lot of recovery, which is nice. That built-in recovery is really nice for your overall sustain, but you're still going to want reduced cost overall. But that magic recovery, we're going to be at 1392, so we're at 1400 basically overall for that. And our stamina recovery is basically chilling at 1542, and that's before a potion. We use tripods on this build, so your recovery is going to go even higher after you use that as well. Our Mundus is going to be the warrior to increase our weapon damage as much as possible. We're also going to be using our Zorga Smoked Bear Haunch on this. I know I said I'm not using that anymore, but I had a viewer be very kind to me and give me 10 of them for free, so I said why not. But for the most part, if you don't have this, I also suggest using the Jewels of Miserable Food. It's basically the exact same thing. You just lose a little bit of max health and a tiny little bit of stamina and magic recovery as well. Also, we're going to be Vampire Stage 3. Vampire Stage 3 is on all of our builds because of the Undeath passive that you build into that. It is just really good for your tankiness the lower health you are, so I definitely recommend doing that. Also, our gear is going to break down like this. We're going to be using Balorg as our monster set. We're going to be using a heavy reinforced helmet and a medium divine shoulder, both with the prismatic enchantments on it. Balorg is going to give you a line of weapon and spell damage. And also, it's going to, when you use an ultimate ability, you're going to gain weapon and spell damage equal to the amount of total ultimate consumed. So if you use 200 ultimate, you're going to get 200 weapon and spell damage. Also, on top of that, you're going to get your physical and spell penetration equal to 23 times the amount for 12 seconds as well. So again, if you do, I'm going to bring out my phone for this one. So we're going to bring out our calculator. So I'm going to stay with that 200 ult. We're going to increase our weapon and spell damage by 200, but if we also use that, we're going to increase our penetration by 4600 as well. So that is absolutely massive for your overall damage for those 12 seconds after you ultimate, and it counts for your ultimate too. So it's really good for your burst damage. I really think that this is necessary on this build. It increases your damage so much, and I definitely recommend trying this out. And if you don't have this, I recommend trying to grind it out. It's really good on a lot of builds, not just this build. Nightblade is very meta for. I know a lot of people use this for Stamps Orcs. A lot of different classes use Balorg, so I definitely recommend grinding this out and trying to get it. We're also going to be using a heavy Curus of the Trainee in Reinforced. We have one extra slot in this build, and putting Trainee on our chest piece gives us the most amount of resistances and health as possible. I definitely recommend putting this in your chest slot. Don't put it anywhere else, because onto that, we're going to be using Deadly for our front bar set. We're going to be using Deadly Divine's Bracers for our hands. So this is going to increase our weapon and spell damage, also going to give us crit chance, weapon spell damage again, and increases the damage of your damage over time and channeled abilities by 15%. So basically all of our damage abilities on this are going to be damage over time and channeled abilities. So it's going to increase our overall damage by 15% on that, and you're hitting a lot harder than you normally do. I definitely recommend trying this out. This is a very good setup. If I was to compare my last setup for Arcanist and this setup, I know that this is going to be my second build already for Arcanist. I think that this one's a lot better. I noticed the damage has been increased a lot on this build, and I definitely think Deadly is to thank for that. I really like it a lot. Moving on to our other set, this is going to be our back bar set. We're going to be using a Rallying Cry Light Sash in Divines. This is going to give us crit chance, max magic, crit chance, and while Battle Spirit is active, so when you're in either Cyrodiil, Imperial City, battlegrounds, or in a duel. Critically healing yourself or an ally is gonna give you 300 weapon and spell damage, and on top of that, also 1650 crit resist for 20 seconds. So your crit resist is going to be through the roof. You don't really need to worry about that, which is why we're built heavily into divines, reinforced, or well fitted. I'll get some other well fitted pieces here in a second, but those are the sets that they're the weights or traits that we need. Sorry, I don't know how to speak today. So you don't really need any impen because you had that extra 1650 crit resist already. And then moving on to our feet, we're going to be using Deadly Feet in the well-fitted trait. That way we can roll dodge a little bit. It's going to reduce the cost of roll dodge and sprint by 4.8%. So that is absolutely massive for your overall sustain when you're roll dodging. Also, our legs are going to be Deadly Legs in well-fitted as well. So we have 2 well-fitted on here. And that's going to really reduce the cost of our roll dodge and sprint a lot. Moving on to our jewelry, we're going to be using Rallying Cry for our 2 regular pieces, both in the Bloodthirsty trait. One is going to have a weapon and spell damage enchantment on it, and the other Rallying Cry ring is going to be Bloodthirsty, but it's going to have a reduced health, magic, and stamina cost of your abilities by 133. That's really great for your overall sustain. Having those abilities that you have being reduced with the cost it's definitely necessary on this. I have noticed the difference between using this and not using it, and I definitely recommend trying that out. Also, our mythic is going to be Mark and Ring of the Magistry in the Bloodthirsty trait. So this is going to give us 200 weapon and spell damage and 2314 armor, since we've got 3 pieces active at all times at the very least. So that's also going to give us a health, magic, and stamina reduced cost as well. That way we have 2 of these. It's definitely noticeable for your sustain. Definitely try it out. If you think that you could pump out more damage because your sustain is fine, drop one of these sustain glyphs, and then you'll be doing even more damage. But overall, I really like the way it's set up right now. I think that this is the perfect way to run this build. But we're also, for the first time in a long time, running Bloodthirsty because I just felt like getting your damage increased as much as possible is necessary, and the infused traits are really nice, but with the reduced health, magic, and stamina cost, getting Bloodthirsty on there, you're still going to be getting that reduced cost, but you're also going to be increasing your weapon and spell damage a lot more. Moving on to our weapons, we're going to be using dual-wield Deadly Maces. Our main hand is going to be Nirnhoned with a shock enchantment on it, and our offhand is going to be sharpened with a flame damage enchantment on it. I like maces for the overall pen that it gives, and just looking at it right now, let me bring out the controller because I don't know how to use this. Looking at our pen just sitting here without even our Balorix proc, our pen is at 9.5k. Our critical is at 30.3%. So overall, our damage is nice on this build. We have some really nice damage numbers, and I definitely like the way it's going so far. Also, our back bar set is going to be Rallying Cry Ice Staff and the Defending trait with a magic restore glyph on it. Moving on to our skills, I'm going to need to read them all because I still don't know the names of all of them. Arcanist is still very new to me, but we're going to be using Flail. I'm not even going to try and pronounce that first word. It's going to be a nice little bit of burst damage that you hit on your enemies in front of you. It's got a nice little tooltip on it, and on top of that, it's going to mobilize your enemies so they can't really move, and it's just nice to kind of root your enemies in place. We've got a nice little combo on this where it's kind of reminding me of old school Mag DK, where you're using talents to lock them in place, and then they roll dodge, and then you hit Fossilize on them, so they're kind of double CC'd. So that's kind of what we're doing on this build. So this is going to mobilize them, and then we can have another ability that's completely going to CC them, and I definitely like it a lot. This is a great way to use this build, and this is just going to give your little upfront burst damage. On top of that, this is going to be an execute that you can use as well, because it could do 100% more damage to enemies that have less than 50% health, so that's awesome. And then Camo Hunter, the reason why we have this on our bar is for that Major Savagery Prophecy, so it's going to increase our weapon and spell crit by 2,600. Also, you're going to be getting Minor Berserk for 5 seconds after dealing damage from the critical damage from the enemy's flank. So when you're getting your burst damage down, try and hit them from the back. That way you always apply that Minor Berserk, that way increase your damage as much as possible. Inspired Scholarship, this is going to be your source of major brutality and sorcery. Just by having this on your bar, you have it active at all times, which is actually a really cool idea. I like that a lot. But then on top of that, you're also going to be doing damage to your enemies every 3 seconds that you have an ability on them. So this is great for your overall sustained damage. I like this morph a lot better than the other one. I feel like this morph just does more damage. The other one's good for your sustain, but I really feel like I didn't need more sustain. So boom, we're going more into damage. And then Rune of the Colorless Pool. This is going to be your source. This is going to be your CC on this build. So hitting them with that flail first to kind of immobilize them. And then once they roll dodge, hit them with this Colorless Pool. Then they're going to get CC'd. So this is going to hit them with that. Also, enemies afflicted with this are going to get minor vulnerability and minor brittle on them for 20 seconds. So it's going to increase their damage taken by 5% and their critical damage taken by 10% as well. So that's when you hit them with this, they're going to just get hit a lot harder. And it's just a nice way to set up your overall combo. I like this morph a lot because this one just keeps them in place. The other morph charms them and they're moving all over and it's hard to hit your beam on them. But this morph just keeps them directly in place where you CC them. And I just feel like I'm just hitting a lot more damage on them because of that. And then Pragmatic Fate Carver, this is just your beam on this build. It's a little channeled beam that's buffed by your deadly, so you're going to be dealing 3,804 magic damage every 0.3 seconds, and then also you're going to be getting a shield on top of that as well. So even if you're getting hit, you have a little bit to absorb before you have to back out of that beam and then heal yourself. Also, this is going to do more damage the more cruxes you have, so try and make sure that you have those cruxes on you at all times. Make sure you use this with 3 cruxes. That way you could just get that damage up as high as possible. We're also going to be using Dawnbreaker on this build. I like this a lot for your overall burst damage. Hitting them with Dawnbreaker and then your beam is actually a lot of damage. But also just having Dawnbreaker on your front bar gives you the passive from Fire's Guild to increase your weapon and spell damage as much as possible. So I like to have this on my front bar. Back bar, we're going to be using Impervious Rune Ward. I was enlightened by my chat to put this on my back bar because there is a passive in Curative Rune Forms where it's, where is it? Right here. Your status is illuminated, whatever. So it's going to increase the strength of your damage shields by 10%. It's also going to reduce the cost of this ability by 10% just by having this active. Just by having we have one ability from the Curative Rune Forms skill line in here. So having this on this bar is also going to make this ability hit harder as far as your shield be bigger. And also it's going to reduce the cost of it. So make sure that your Evolving Rune Mend and your Impervious Rune Ward are on the same bar, or you're not going to get that increased shield strength. So definitely recommend you do that. Also, moving on, we're going to be using Race Against Time. This is going to be your snare removal, so that's great for that. Also, it's going to give you Major Expedition, so it's going to increase your movement speed by 30%. Also, it's going to give you Minor Force, so it's going to increase your critical damage by 10% as well. So this build has a lot of crit built into it, so I definitely recommend keeping this active. When you're about to go for your burst, make sure you have Race Against Time active. You want that 10% critical damage on you. Also, Resolving Vigor, this is going to be your main 5-second heal over time. And on top of that, it's also going to give you Minor Resolve, so it's going to increase your physical and spell resistance by 3k for 20 seconds. Evolving Rune Mend, this is going to be a nice little burst heal in a way. You're going to heal 3 times for 3705 health, so that is what? That's just shy of 12k if I do math off the top of my head. So it's a nice little burst heal to have. Having Resolving Vigor going at all times, and if you have your shield going, that's nice too. Then on top of that, there's also a passive in here somewhere. Anyway, this is a really good ability overall. I think that is great for your overall healing sustain, and it's really not that expensive when you're just spamming it. It's a great way to stay alive, and I definitely recommend trying to keep this on your back bar. Definitely make sure that you're using both Evolving Rune Mend and Impervious Rune Ward on the same bar. I know I've said it before, but please, 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 I definitely noticed the difference between having them on the same bar and not having them on the same bar. I'm learning from my mistakes, and I'm slowly learning this class. So I definitely appreciate your guys' patience with that. I know I'm kind of rambling a lot with this video. I hope that you guys understand. Anyways, moving on to our last ability on here, we're going to be using Crux Weaver Armor. This is going to be your source of major resolve, so it's going to increase your armor by 6k. Also, on top of that, enemies are going to be hit with minor breach that do damage to you, so it's going to reduce their physical and spell resistance by 3k for 6 seconds. Also, whenever you take damage, you're going to be getting a Crux, so this is huge for your overall Crux sustain. So the more Cruxes you have, the higher you heal for your impervious I can't even speak today. The higher the heal on the impervious rune ward. Also, the more Cruxes you have, the higher the damage on Pragmatic Fake Carver. Why are these? Why do they have to give the most complicated names to these new abilities? Anyways, our back bar ultimate is going to be Tide King's Gaze. So this ultimate hits so hard, and this is going to be the one that follows them around, so it's going to be doing 3,750 magic damage to enemies every 0.5 seconds. So that's what, over 7k damage every second, and it's going to be going for 8 seconds as well. So if you have this on your enemy, apply this on your enemy right away, hit your Rune of the Colorless Pool, get them CC'd, then hit your beam. Between your beam going every 0.3 seconds doing damage, and between this doing damage every 0.5 seconds, the damage you're doing on your enemies is absolutely insane. And I definitely recommend comboing this and this together. And then finally, moving on to our champion points, we're going to be using Focus Mending, Fighting Aura, Ironclad, and Thaumaturge. Our red slotables are going to be Celerity, Sustained by Suffering, Pain's Refuge, and Survival Instincts. And in the green tree, all we care about are Rationer, Liquid Efficiency, and Breakfall. And moving on, that is it. Actually, there's no moving on. That's just it. We've got the footage for this build after I'm done talking here. So guys, make sure you're staying tuned for that. Also, one last time, if you're not subscribed to the channel, please do so. We are really about to hit that 6k mark, and I can't stress enough how badly I want to do that. I want to see if we can do that by the end of June. So if you guys want to do that and help me out, I would highly appreciate that. Also, if you want to see builds like this live in action, you can catch me live at twitch.tv/Sekaar, where I stream 5 days a week. Come check me out. The link will be in the description. Also, one last thing. We started up a second channel for our VODs on Twitch. It's just posted to my YouTube. So I'm going to be honest, guys, you don't have to go watch them, but it would really appreciate it. I would appreciate it so much if you guys could just go and subscribe to that as well. If you are subscribed, the way to do that is just easy. The link will be in the description, so please just go do that. It would mean the world to me. But I'm done talking. I can't really speak anymore. I'm just tripping over my own words at this point, so I'm just done talking. Thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you guys so much for being here. Now see you guys on the next video. Later.